Welcome to the Inferno Cast. Today's guest has multiple black belts in different styles, including Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's the founder of Combat Submission Wrestling and STX Kickboxing, and his team currently coaches some of the top talent in the UFC and Bellator, Erik Paulson. How you doing today, sir?
Hey guys, how are you today?
Doing great, man. I'm just glad that you took some time to talk to me. I've followed you since like the 90's, man. I mean, you were always one of my heroes and an active fighter. So being able to kind of go over some of the history and listen to some of the stories, I'm pretty excited.
How are you handling the lockdown?
It's good. It's an unfortunate circumstance for everything, but it's forced a lot of new skills. Like my team that's running the schools, we flipped everything online and interacting with our clients in different ways. And it gave me an opportunity to start working on this project where I'm getting to reach out to a lot of old friends and meet new friends and connect with a lot of industry leaders. So growth is coming from it, but it's definitely been an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, it's hard on a lot of people. If you
Absolutely.
drive by the food bank lines, they're pretty long.
Yeah, we sent out some connections to our schools with people within, like, hey, if somebody's having problems or struggles with, food, clothing, just stuff like that, like, just let us know, because we try to reach out to community as much as we can, and this is definitely time. So
How many schools are you guys affiliated with?
we have 3 schools that are under the Inferno brand, and then like our affiliation has about 12 or 13, within that
Wow,
group. So
that's wonderful.
yeah, so we got a good group. Everybody's kind of training hard, trying to get through this. So we'll make it through. But I wanted to start with one of the questions I usually ask everybody is, what was your first influence of martial arts that was like, man, I want to do some martial arts as a kid?
Um, so when I was a young kid, my mom and my dad had me, I'm from Minnesota, and they had me playing baseball, hockey, and football. And I remember I got to play baseball, I got to play football, but sometimes in hockey, I would sit on the bench. Not always, but during some games. So they're like, oh, because we had a bunch of kids that were all there for the same spot. So, anyways, I wasn't a starter. Probably because that just means that I probably wasn't that good. But I loved hockey. I loved to fight, even as a little kid, which is dumb. I used to go after the person and not the puck. And I just remember, like, our team, we drove all this way, and I remember we had a match, and one of our games, after the game, we lost. And I remember the coaches just yelling at us, going, we drove all this way, you guys suck. You guys didn't do what we said. He goes, and this one guy goes, you're a bunch of losers. And I just looked at him, I'm like, well, how am I a loser? I'm sitting on the bench. I didn't even get to play. So how does that qualify me as a loser? And this was an assistant coach that said that. If a coach said that, he should be canned anyways for little kids. I'm in 4th grade or 3rd grade or 4th grade. So all of a sudden I just go, I played again. I played the next game, and then the next game after that I didn't play. And the same thing happened. He goes, you guys suck. This assistant coach was really talking down to us. And I go, you know what? I go, I even confront him. I said, how do I suck? I go, I didn't get to play. He goes, that's because you suck. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went home, and I remember telling my mom and dad, and I go, hey, my mom was cool. My dad was really sad to hear that, one of Minnesota's favorite winter sports is hockey. And for me to come home going, Dad, I don't want to play hockey anymore. I want to do something else. I just don't want to play hockey. And he's like, why don't you want to play hockey? I go, well, half the time I don't get to play. And I don't like the way the assistant coach just talks down to everybody. And so I was sitting there, and my mom goes, well, there's some individual sports you could do. And I go, like what? And I remember at my elementary school, she goes, well, there's a judo class there if you're ever interested to do judo. And I remember when I was a little kid how mystic it was. Martial arts was like, ancient martial arts or ancient Asian secrets. And I remember my mom brought me there, and I immediately fell in love with it. And the judo coach goes, okay, the first thing to do is teach everyone how to break fall. Does anyone know why you need to break fall? And he goes, I need a volunteer. And I go, me, choose me. So he grabs me in front of everyone. And this is where I realized that I had a knack for slapstick comedy. And this guy, and I was in front, and they're like, all right, Erik, go, Erik. And this guy hits me with a Tayatoshi and just buries me into the floor. And I don't know how to break fall. And I remember hitting the mat, which was probably that thick at the time. Yeah. I hit the floor, and all of a sudden I was laying there, and I was like, oh, and he knocked the wind out of me. And then he goes, go ahead and stand up. And I go, I can't. And then everyone's clapping. They're like, oh my gosh, this is funny. And I got up again. He goes, so did you see it? This is why we learned to break. And he flipped me down again. And I hit the floor, and I just laid there, and I was like, I couldn't breathe. He knocked the wind out of me, and everyone was clapping and cheering. And then he told everyone to be quiet. And he said, judo is a sport where we introduce people to the earth. And everyone was like laughing and clapping. And then I was like, I stood up with my hands up, and and I remember he's like, cause they didn't like, cause I was a little kid. He didn't like showboaters. He didn't like, he was very disciplined with everything. So like you couldn't have a personality. And in that class, I became the best in the class because I was just outgoing and an athlete. And I remember like one day our class moved from the gymnasium to a music room. And he put the mats in the music room. And I remember, and he goes, whatever you guys do, pay attention to class. Don't you dare play an instrument. So all I heard was, any chance you get, play an instrument as loud as you can. So we had to stand in line, and this guy, my teacher, threw me, and I got up and I stood in line, and I was all quiet with my hands crossed, and I went again, and he threw me again, and I went back in line, threw me through the third time, and I grabbed a tambourine, and I started dancing around, and I was shaking the thing, and I grabbed a horn and started trying to play a horn. And he goes, one warning. And next thing you know, I was sitting there, and he threw me again, and I grabbed I think there was a xylophone in there. I went, and he goes, you're out of here. And I remember my friend was waiting outside because the class was an hour and a half. It was cold. It was the middle of winter. And next thing you know, we were out back of the school, sledding down the back of the school on this huge ice hill. Because of the middle of winter, we're in February, so it's all icy and probably below zero. And I remember my friends like, I'm so glad you got kicked out of class early. He goes, now we can sled down the hill. So we're just sliding down the hill, and he's like, why did you get kicked out of there? I go, I was just playing instruments. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I go, we were in the music room. The gymnasium was closed, so we had the music room, and I got kicked out because I started playing instruments. And he couldn't understand. My friend couldn't understand why I would get kicked out for that reason. But it's because I did not listen to the teacher.
Right. So it's so funny that like your first story is, everybody's cheering and laughing because you're getting thrown and hurt, which, like that goes on forever. Where it's just like people love watching people get hurt, especially during training. It's like, who's the volunteer today to take the throw? That's so
well, funny. I didn't realize that I could make everyone laugh. And so from then on, as a little kid, I always was the comedian. I wasn't really that serious about stuff. I was always goofing around. I was always trying to figure out how to make everyone laugh. Even in class with the teacher, I would always try to do something to make people laugh.
Yeah, just the forever entertainer, trying to keep it light, and a lot of, sports psychologists and performance specialists, they talk about that with athletes that, if you can enjoy the process, like whenever the process is fun and high energy to you and it's not work, that they perform better, which with your career, I think kind of showed through because, you perform very well as an athlete. So where did the martial arts revisit your life where you started taking it a little bit more serious?
So fourth through sixth grade, I did judo, and then my teacher, I beat everybody in both classes, and my teacher said, "You have a knack for this, so you might want to consider, entering into some competitions down the road." In Minnesota in 1974, 5, and 6, there wasn't too many judo competitions. There was wrestling, there was boxing, but there was not judo. So after that, so in sixth or seventh grade, I got in a fight. I remember it was actually in sixth grade. I got in a fight with this kid. He was a bully, and he's picking on. I would always watch this kid pick on people. So finally, I stepped in and I go, "Hey, you want to pick on somebody, pick on me." So we were fighting on ice, and I had slick shoes on. I went to hip toss him. I grabbed him. I grabbed his jacket, and I went to turn and hit a drop seonagi. And he reached up, grabbed my hair, pulled my hair back in the snowbank, just started hockey punching my face. So I reached up, grabbed his hair, and started hockey punching from the ground, like Don Fry and the big guy from Japan. And we were punching each other in the face and kept punching each other and kept punching each other. And then finally we looked at each other, and he goes, "Do you give up?" I go, "I don't give up." I go, "Do you give up?" He goes, "I don't give up." And I go, "Okay, we have to both give up at the same time and let go of each other's hair." And then I remember getting up going, "Yeah, I'm going to have a rematch, but not on ice." And I'm thinking, yeah, I need to learn how to fight, I think. I need to learn how to punch and kick. My judo doesn't work. This is what I thought. And so immediately I went to one of my friends. His name was Jim Bolio, and he said, "Hey, there's a martial arts movie playing at a theater near my house. Ride your bike over here and we'll go watch it." So I rode my bike to his house, and we watched Game of Death in the movie theaters. Game of Death. I saw Enter the Dragon when it came out in a special viewing, not even in a movie theater. And that I just said, I want to learn how to do that. And he goes, "You need to learn how to punch. You need to learn how to kick." I go, "Can you imagine if you knew how to kick?" And so by one of the movie theaters, there was a Taekwondo school, but it was a sport karate school. They didn't really do forms, but it was all sparring. And I remember the teacher was an unbelievable boxer. He was a good full contact karate guy. He was a great an unbelievable kicker. And then we had another teacher that was there that was a Taekwondo. He was stationed in Korea, and he learned Taekwondo over there. So he was a Korean military guy, and this guy was strict as they come. And the other guy was the fighter. And I started training with him when I was in sixth grade. At the end of my judo, I begged my mom. I said, "Mom, can I please take karate?" And she's like, "I don't know. Let's go over and talk." And I remember they were talking about a contract. And I go, "Mom, can we afford it? Please let me take karate. I need karate." And she's like, I go, "I got to learn how to defend myself." And it was funny because I remember I learned an American and a Russian roll, which is a headlock, American roll, which is back to head and arm, and then a head and arm, you go under them at an angle, a Russian roll, to a pin, which ended up being a neck crank. And I learned it from a kid that was in my Taekwondo class that was a wrestler. And I remember I created an entire series out of the headlock that I had learned from this kid. And my brother was a wrestler at the time. But I ended up doing the Taekwondo and competing all throughout the Midwest. And I remember it's when full contact karate just started coming into play. And my dad was just adamant. He's like, for Christmas, he bought my brother and I a pair of boxing gloves. And I remember he was sitting in a chair downstairs. He goes, we put him on. He goes, all right, ready, go. And I just put my head down and started milling. And my dad just clapping. And then Brad would just wind up and one punch, clock me. And I remember the first time I learned a spinning back fist. And I go, hey, you want to box again? He goes, yeah, we're going at it. I mean, we're trying to knock each other's heads off. And I hit a spinning back fist on him. And he went flying into the wall, and he goes, that's illegal. You can't use that. And I almost knocked him out cold with it. And I was like, that's my secret. I'm going to use spin back fists when we box. And all of a sudden, my dad's like, that karate is a really dangerous thing. You should really get into a good sport like boxing. Boxing would be good for you. So in 8th grade, I started boxing Golden Gloves. And then that fall, my mom's like, so you want to play baseball? So I played another year of baseball and football. And again, in baseball, I played like right field. I played shortstop. I played second and third base. Then first base. Then I was a catcher. And I just remember, like, I couldn't really find a position that I really, really loved to do. And then I remember the coaches starting all these guys. They're like, is your brother so-and-so? And he's like, yeah. He goes, all right, you're on third base. Who's your brother? He goes, oh, okay, you're a shortstop. And I remember because I didn't have a brother that was 2 or 3 years older that the coach knew. I had a brother that was 1 year older, but he was great in baseball, but he didn't make it to like high school baseball. He threw his elbow out. He had the fastest arm and when we were a little kid. And I remember we were at a park and he threw a fastball. My dad goes, throw faster. And he throws it faster. My dad was highly competitive and he threw a fastball and his elbow popped out of socket.
Oh man.
And so they went to the doctor and the doctor goes, yeah, we can't put it back in. So they left it out. So to this day, his arm was never put back into place. I could put a kid's elbow back into place if it popped out right now if I had to. I've set so many shoulders, noses, shoulders, fingers, you name it. I put them back in all the time. So this doctor, if I were Brad back then, he had a major lawsuit. But people didn't sue people back then.
That's true. Back in those days, you were coach and orthopedic, all in the same thing.
I just felt bad. He lost his thing. So we were at Cook Arena, and my brother and I, we would skate, and he was really fast on his skates. And so my dad goes, Brad, let's see how fast you could go from board to board. So not the long way, but the short way across the rink. And he was on the other side, and he came flying as fast as he could. And he tripped right before he got to us, and his tooth went, and he landed with both of his buck teeth into the boards right in front of us, and his tooth snapped in half and stuck into the board.
No way.
So now Brad's elbow, he's got a dislocated, he's got a broken tooth, and then later his elbow popped out. And so it kind of ruined his career. So for me, I didn't have a brother that was older, so the coaches, they didn't play you right off the bat. And I remember sitting on the bench going, and they go, sorry, I remember our team lost, and they go, oh, same thing. Okay, you guys lost again. We need to go to practice. We need to do more laps. And I was like, well, why do I have to do all this? I didn't lose. I didn't even get to play.
Right.
Same thing. This guy goes, you suck. And I go, well, so the only reason you're playing is because he knows who your brother is. You're not better than me. You have a brother that the coach knows. So that was when I said, okay. And right then my mom goes, hey, you should consider gymnastics. So in 8th grade, I started boxing, and then I started gymnastics while I was doing karate.
Well, I've seen a lot of kids over the years that did gymnastics when they were younger, and that transitioned over to martial arts like That's one of the biggest things that I've noticed of other sports that had a positive impact, because the core strength and the balance, like, I mean, when I get kids that have been gymnasts for a very long time or something like that, I mean, their jujitsu, their striking, like everything is so much better because of that core strength, balance, and flexibility. Do you feel like that paid dividends later, because I mean, you've done all these different styles, and then you make the transition where you're looking at maybe competing, doing some fights. Do you really feel like that diversified background is what gave you the advantage?
It made me super strong. I had unbelievable body control. So from eighth grade past high school, I did gymnastics. I also was lifting weights, doing karate, boxing at the same time. And I remember in eighth or ninth grade, there was an Aikido guy. And I was so used to playing so many sports and always being busy that as I was boxing, I said, what day are your Aikido class? So I joined Aikido. And I was studying Aikido, I think, eighth or ninth grade. At the same time, I was doing boxing. And it was pretty cool, but it was completely traditional Aikido. But it was really, really neat. And it was cool to learn because I had passion for judo. I loved that. I loved the Aikido. And
and there's a major correlation. You hear a lot of, guys talk about, Aikido and Judo are very similar styles, and the circles and the ideas, so they complement supposedly.
Aikido is a lot of more wristy, twisty stuff, and Judo's a lot of trips and flips.
Yeah.
So anyways, I got into individual sports because of the fact that that was it. Like, if you fail, it's because you suck, because you failed, not because your team failed. And the individual sports for me that was the secret, because now you're accountable for everything.
So when did you find Gracie Jiu-Jitsu?
So I moved to Palm Desert after high school. I graduated in 1984. And in 1986, I drove and moved to California. I moved to Palm Desert, California, and I was fortunate at that time. There was no one local, so I started doing Taekwondo and boxing out in the desert there. And there was a guy named Tim Tackett, Sifu Tim Tackett. He was a JKD guy, and he had trained under Sifu or Guru Dan Indusano, and he was halfway from Palm Desert to LA, which I eventually wanted to get to LA. But I got invited to go to his garage and train on Wednesday nights. And it was on a Wednesday night class. We used to just beat the crap out of each other. We put on boxing gloves, and it was all glove drills, and then somebody would put a glove on their right hand and walk around class and just punch you in the side of the head. So you had awareness while you're doing drills.
It's like the universal martial arts thing is Wednesdays are beatdown days. Like, I mean, people all across the world, different walks of life, different styles. Every story's like, well, on Wednesdays, we'd really kind of beat the crap out of each other.
You know why? Because if you're not humping, you're fighting. Because Wednesday is normally hump day. It's one or the other.
Yeah, you need a T-shirt that says
Peace,
that.
not war, or you just make war. Wednesday's hump day or fight day.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's funny. You need a T-shirt that says that. I would buy it for sure. So you're out in the desert. You're doing JKD. Were you introduced to JKD before you went out there, or was that your introduction?
My introduction to JKD was while I was doing karate in a place called Coon Rapids, where I'm from. Rick Fay did a seminar there when I was in 10th grade, 11th grade. He did a seminar, and I saw what he was doing, and I had all of Bruce Lee's books, Adab Jeet Do, Bruce Lee's fighting methods, and I was reading it, aside from every other martial arts book that you could possibly get at B. Dalton bookstore. And next thing you know, I said, what are you doing? I go, oh, so everyone had broomsticks they'd cut off and or dowel rods, and they were
Yeah.
doing Sinawali. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not really into weapons. And then all of a sudden he started doing footwork, and I go, oh, he's a boxer. Because his footwork was so good. His movement, his slip, tuck, bob, and weave. And I was like, oh, he's a boxer. And that excited me because I had boxed for that time. And then all of a sudden he started kicking, and I was like, how come you're kicking with a bent leg? Why are you kicking with your shin? Why aren't you like snapping your kick? And he goes, it's called Muay Thai or Thai boxing. It's like power kicking. And he goes, it's a good addition. But we also do the other. And he started doing Savat. And I was like, oh, so you have pinpoint kicks also. And next thing you know, I was like, and then I saw him do trapping and then arm destructions, the Gunting system. And I was like, and I remember afterwards, I said, what exactly is it that you're teaching? And he goes, I go, who's your teacher? And he goes, it's Junfan, Jeet Kune Do, and Kali. And I go, Bruce Lee? He goes, yeah, my teacher is Dan Asano and Seafood Larry Hartzell. And I go, where are you located? He goes, Minneapolis. And I remember, like, I was probably I was in 11th grade at the time. I remember I immediately quit karate. Right before I was a black stripe. I was getting ready to test for my black belt. And right then I quit karate and I went straight into full-time to learn from Rick Fay. And that was in 1980, 81, 82, all the way up to 85. And then I moved in 86 to California. And
so
then
the move to California, I mean, that's a pretty bold thing, from, the Midwest and snow and ice and cold to the desert. That seemed like an unlikely transition. Did you have some goals or something in sight you're chasing?
4 things. I went there for college because your first 2 years of college was free if you're a resident. It was free. So you didn't have to pay for tuition. You just had to buy your books. That was first thing. Second thing was at the time in Minnesota, I was doing a lot of modeling. I was a young gymnast. So anyways, I did a lot of swimwear and modeling stuff. And I was trying to transition from modeling into acting, which later turned into stunt work, because when I started doing modeling stuff in Palm Desert and talking to LA agents, I got hit on by all these guys. And I said, hey, I'm straight. I'm not gay, I'm straight. So, I want to work. And they're like, well, and I go, no, I'm straight. So that's the way it is. And so I got hit on as a modeling and an actor, model and actor. And I said, hey, can you guys tell me if any of the stunt guys, I mean, do they hit on each other, or is it pretty much a bunch of straight guys? And they go, oh yeah, stunt guys you'll never get hit on by a stunt guy. And I go, I'm going into stunts. And that's what it was. So I ended up going for modeling and acting. I went to go there for school, and I went there for martial arts. And I went to train. I ultimately wanted to get to the Inosanto Academy to train with Guru Dan Inosanto. But I also at the time was training with Benny the Jet Urquidez. I was able to go get some private lessons.
Oh, wow.
And it was just, making a choice. And at the time, I had done both. And I drove to the Inosanto Academy after a private lesson from the Jet Center. And this is 1988. There was a picture of striking, throwing, submission. It was Yuri Naga Nakamura. It said special guest from Japan. He's teaching shooting. And I thought, gun or?
Yeah, because you're from the Midwest. Yeah, shooting out where you're from, you're like, oh yeah, man, we're gonna go shoot some rounds, so out there. Yeah.
but it was, so I took the seminar, but at that time, while I was at Tim Tackett's in his garage, they're like, hey, you should go learn from these Brazilian guys. And I go, really? And they go, yeah, they actually have an open challenge, and if you go there, they'll fight you. And I go, I don't want to go and fight anybody. I mean, do they teach? And they go, I don't know. You should check them out. So I looked up the Gracies, and I actually called, and I got my first private lesson in 1986 with Jorge and Gracie in his garage.
Man, that's awesome. That's a lot of history. So, but at this time, because did you know much about the ground at this time? You know, because well, you know, one of the big JKT guys that I always think about is Larry Hartzell. I feel like he was truly like he led the charge, especially on the grappling and some of the groundwork. So, were you familiar whenever you met the Gracies a little bit, like Kesagatami and from Judo and Nawaza, or was
Yes.
it all new territory?
No, it wasn't. So we did before I left Minnesota, I joined this club, and the teacher, it was all Newaza. And I remember I brought my friend. It wasn't just throwing. He goes, I'm going to teach you ground. And I remember I brought my friend. He was a Greco-Roman guy, and he belittled this brown belt. He threw him all over the place, and then we went on the ground, and I was like, how are you so good? And he goes, oh, I wrestled my entire childhood. And he's a Greco guy. And so there was a lot of ground that we learned at that time. And then we were also not taught, but they wanted us to compete in judo as much as we could so we could get our ranking. Yeah. And so in the tournaments in the Midwest, they weren't, like I said, they weren't that big. So it was really hard to compete like that. So anyways, you know, they're either white belts or black belts. You know, and if you're a beginner, you do a white belt. Otherwise, you competed in the black belt division. So we had worked a lot of the ground stuff at the time. My brother was a wrestler, so him and I used to wrestle my entire childhood. I would kick him in the face, and he would grab me and throw me down, and we would. I was really good at escaping Kesagatami because he was wrestling. He always hit a head and arm on me.
Oh man, scarf hold for life, right?
Well, Brad had braces, so I used to grab his upper lip and rub his lip into his, and they'd stick in his teeth. And I remember I got really good at getting out of Kesagatami. So when we went to when I got my first private lesson from Jorge, and it was standing, and then he put me in cage. He goes, "How would you get out of this?" And I reached over like this, and I go, you know, like, oops, like he had a mustache too. And last thing I was going to do is rub Jorge and Gracie's, Master Jorge and Gracie's lip into his teeth. And so I go, I don't know. And that's the best way to learn is just say, I don't know.
Absolutely.
So anyways, I had Jorge in for, I don't know, a while. And then later on, he just said, my brother's going to train you. My brother Hoist is going to train you, because Jorge got really busy. But they brought me in their house and introduced me to their family. I met all of his kids when they were teeny, and they were watching. I remember Rose was babysitting all the kids, and they were watching cartoons and eating fruit. I remember they were eating lots of fruit, like bananas and strawberries, and
yeah.
But that was part of the Gracie diet. You know,
yeah.
It's pretty cool. But he brought me in and showed me the history of his family. I mean, he really like opened the doors to us. Horian did to the students to show us the historical stuff with it. Yeah. And I never wanted to tell him I knew anything at all. But I remember he grabbed my shirt, or my gi at the time, my kimono, and he grabbed it with a fist, and he goes, "Let's say I'm a tough guy. What would you do?" And I go, really? And he goes, "Yeah, what would you do right now?" And I put my hand under it, and I hit his bicep twice, and then I simulated like I was eye jabbing him. Yeah. And he goes, "Let's say I'm tough." And he goes, "Let's say I'm tough." And he goes, "And I don't need my eyes to fight." And I was like,
What?
And that's how he showed the counter to the front hand grab. And I learned all the self-defense stuff.
Yeah.
Which was cool. The Gracie combatives, or the self-defense, that was the first part of my training, was all that stuff. And it wasn't until I took a private one time in like 88 or 89 with Hickson, because I hooked my friend up with Hickson because he lived by him, and they go, hey, there's a tougher, you have Hoist, who hadn't fought yet in the UFC, and they go, there's one of their brothers who has got like 400 fights. And I go, is he nice or is he mean? And he goes, he's super nice. And I go, okay, well, maybe I'll do a private. So I remember my first private, and Hickson said, okay. He goes, where would you like to start? And I go, can we go on the ground? And he goes, yeah, what do you think jiu-jitsu is? I go, self-defense? And he goes, no, it's primarily on the ground. And I go, oh, okay. So he goes, do you know anything like a choke? And I go, sure. And he goes, go ahead and choke me. And then I got behind him, I choked him. He goes, you ready? And I go, yeah. He goes, squeeze as hard as you can. And then he started counting from 10 down to 1. And by the time he hit 1, he was on my back choking me. And he goes, oh, good job, Hickson. He goes, it's like Christmas. There's presents all over the place. And I was like, oh, man.
That's so funny.
So he goes, do you know an arm bar? And I go, I think I do. And so I put an arm lock on him. And he goes, you ready? He goes, extend it. And he had his arm at full extension. And the same thing, he counted down from 10 down to 1. And by the time he hit 1, he was already arm locking me, holding my arm. And I was like, damn. I go, how does this guy get arm barred and get out and get me? And that was a selling point. I was like, that's amazing. He goes, that's the essence of jiu-jitsu. I let you make a mistake. I go, but I wasn't making mistakes. I mean, I had your arm fully extended. You know, I don't remember if it was a hitchhiker escape or whatever. I just was amazed that he got out and he re-arm barred me as he was counting down.
Yeah, the countdown, man. The infamous stories of where he's like, okay, I'm going to count down. And then he counters and submits. Like, just, you know, it really illustrates how deep, you know, the martial arts can go within like that specific style, the jiu-jitsu. And just when you see somebody that connects to what they're trying to do on a real deep level, it's hard to comprehend until you're there. I mean, I can remember so many years of my life being around martial artists that were performing things that I just could not process what they were doing. I mean, whether it was Kali, I remember when I started boxing and jiu-jitsu, like I can remember those individual styles to where it was so overwhelming for me that I was just kind of like, you know, zoned out because I just couldn't comprehend what was happening.
Well, so in 1989, Hoist said, I heard you got a private lesson with my brother. But during the 86 era, I got a private lesson with Higgin because Hoist couldn't teach me. And Higgin couldn't speak much English. And I said, he goes, where do you want to start? And I go, can we go on the ground? He goes, what do you think jiu-jitsu is? And I go, self-defense? He goes, no, my specialty is the ground. And so he taught, it was a great lesson because we didn't get much on the ground. We got a little bit, you know, because it was all sequential. And I said, how am I supposed to get better? He goes, take more privates. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I should get another job because I was already bartending. I already had 2 jobs. So I had 3 or 4 jobs only to pay for more private lessons. So it was funny because I was paying $650 a month for private lessons from the Gracies, North Hollywood Muay Thai. I got to train with Sexon, Sifu Larry Hartzell, Guru Dan and Asano, Sensei Yuri Nakamura. I got to do privates with all these guys all at the same time. And then I got to train and do private lessons with Hoist. And then Hoist told me that I had to make a choice. Hoist said I had to make a choice. Hoist said I had to make a choice. No. So he said, I heard you train with my brother. And I go, yeah, it was great. And he goes, so what do you think? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, do you want to train with him or do you want to train with me? And I go, both. I want to train with you because I like you and I like what you teach, and then I want to learn more on the ground because I want to fight. And he was like, well, you can't play on 2 football teams at the same time. You have to make a choice. And I go, I choose Team Gracie. And he's like, no, it's either my brother or me. And I go, why do I have to make a choice like that? What? I don't want to make a choice like that. Why do I have to do that? I mean, why can't I train with him on the ground on Wednesday, and I'll train with you on Monday and Friday? Or he's like, no, it's one or the other. And I was really like taken off that there was a split at that time, but I didn't know that everything had been separate. And it was, but I was willing to do both and not sacrifice one for the other, but I wanted to train with both of them. But I had the idea of fighting because I had already done Shooto, and they handed me a tape and I watched it and I go, this is perfect for me because I do kickboxing. I boxed. I wrestled and did judo with my brother. And then I'm doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And I go, I want to see how good I am. And I go, I want to fight. They hand me a tape in 1988, since Yuri did. And so I already formulated I want to fight. And I created my own tape and I sent it to Japan. And it was in 1980 or 1992, I got a response, and the founder of Shooto said, if you have any American guys that you train, Sensei Yori, we would like to set up a competition of Japan versus America in Shooto. So Yuri goes, we're going to go to Japan. You're going to fight in the beginning of next year. We have to figure out a teammate that you have that you could train with. And at the time, there wasn't really anyone at the academy that really wanted to fight and that was good on the ground and good standing. So they go, your training partner is going to be Chad Stahelski. And I go, let's see. So Chad's a black belt in Japanese judo. So he's good at throwing, but he didn't know much on the ground. And his striking was great. And I was like, well, he needs more work on his grappling. And he's like, but his striking is very good. But they liked Chad because he looked half Asian, and he was a better sell to the Japanese than this blonde hair, blue-eyed American.
With long hair, right? This was ponytail days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, we both had long. Chad had long hair too. So we, anyways. So in our training, it was Chad and I were training for the fight, and his striking was so much better than mine. But I would always grab him and get him down to the ground. And I said, listen, I want to do a trade. I want to do a trade. I want to do a trade of striking. You help me with my striking, I'll help you with your grappling. And we videotaped it. It was mostly me helping him with his grappling. At that time, he didn't help until he retired from fighting. And I asked him to become my coach. He didn't do much teaching of anything. It was more me showing him stuff that he could fight with in Japan. Yeah. So there's a lot of footage. I think I have it right here.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I created a video called Matt Burn. Chad is the director on John Wick 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's really cool.
So I went down with the 8711 guys and helped them out with a lot of the choreography of stuff, and a lot of the stuff that I do matched really well with what they taught Keanu. And I had originally trained Jason Statham. I gave him about 32 moves, all throws and grappling. And they were going to use Jason, and then they ended up using Keanu instead of Jason. Oh. And so all that stuff that I taught Jason, we had to turn around and teach Keanu. So yeah. One of my black belts, Erik Brown, went down to help teach what I taught Jason, and then that's where they started using all all the stuff for John Wick, aside
Yeah,
from the gun stuff. It was pretty interesting.
right. No, that's really cool. Just sometimes because it's just when you do this for your entire life and you influence so many people, and before you know it, somebody's making a movie. They're doing martial arts. They like your style, and you have the information and knowledge. It's funny how it comes full circle like that. That's really cool. So
Well, let me
go ahead.
see. I think I have a video right here on my phone. Oh yeah, that's Chad and I.
Yeah.
That's Chad and I going at it at the Inosanto Academy. Look at our hair hadn't even grown out yet.
Yeah. What year do you think that was?
1990.
Oh man,
1990.
that's so cool. The amount of VHS tapes that I have that
What's
are
that?
copies. I said the amount of VHS tapes I have that are copies of old instructionals from the 90's and seminars and stuff. I still have them in a box up in the attic because I saved them all because your friend would get a video and
You
it was
need
so.
to have those converted.
That's exactly what my wife told me. She said the heat's tough on them, and especially the older they get because
That's right.
uh, a
The
lot of them
track.
were copies of seminars too. Like whenever back in the day, everybody recorded seminars with the big VHS cameras, and so we'd make copies, and they're fuzzy because they're copies of copies of copies. But I mean, that's what we were watching and learning from, back in the day because there just
That's
wasn't a
right.
lot of information. I
I
mean,
used to sell. I used to sell videotapes. I remember. I used to make videotapes. I made killer leg locks and killer chicken wings and killer arm bars. And I remember they're all on VHS tapes. And I remember my webmaster, Bob Berge, goes, things are starting to change a little bit. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, they're changing from a videotape to a CD, like a disc. And I go, like what's it called? He goes, CD-ROM or something. It's like, which turned into a DVD. And then DVDs became popular. And I was like, and all of a sudden the videotapes were just, and everyone's buying DVD players.
Yeah.
And then I remember they were trying to change them to the mini DV.
Yeah.
And people were handing me, he goes, hey, here's my business card. But that only lasted like 2 years.
Yeah, that was like a blip of it's like, here's a good idea that just didn't take,
Yeah, it went to the wayside. And then all of a sudden, like recently, Bob's like, well, DVDs aren't moving like they used to. And I go, so how are people accessing the information? He goes, downloads. Everyone's buying downloads onto their cell phones because your cell phone's like a TV.
Yeah.
Movie projector.
Absolutely. No,
And guys carry them with them, and stream them to their TVs. So, and I go, well, so now that's the new thing is everyone's buying downloads. Like,
I mean, if this is 1990, I'd be flying to California. I'd be finding a payphone, trying to find somebody that had a number in a phone book, come to your house and set up a big clunky VCR.
right.
Not to mention I'd be like 8 or 9 years old, but, but it would.
How come your video camera is bigger than you are?
Yeah, exactly. That is so true, man. In those days, it would be those big VCR things, man, or VHS things that were just so big. You see them now, like kids don't know what they are. People, they're like, "What is this thing?
What is this?"
But videotapes, like that was the first educational, thing that you could use to spread martial arts aside from face to face. I really feel like that was the transition that started taking out the kind of smoke and mirrors of martial arts. Like you could actually capture a moment in time. So it wasn't always a story of like, oh, I know this guy that did this, to where I feel like that kind of kicked off the real part of martial arts started coming out when they started televising events and when they started duplicating instructionals, that seemed to be the trigger to where a lot of the old style martial arts kind of started to slow and this new reality based style really picked up. And
I remember there was a company that this guy was pirating everyone's stuff, and he was like on an underground forum, and he had a list he had a list of all these people. And I remember I texted him and I said, hey, I said, I see that you're selling Mark Kerr's videotapes. I go, that you're taking money out of his pocket. You got Boss Rutan, you got Mark Kerr, you got Mark Coleman, you got Marco Huaz. And so I text him, I go, you got my stuff? And I go, hey, stop selling our stuff or we're going to knock on your door. And he goes, what? And I go, boss, I already talked to boss. Boss said, so I said, I'm coming over there. I'll come to your house. I'm going to take all your video equipment. And then I said, I talked to Mark Kerr. I said, Mark Kerr is going to come over there and he's going to slam you on your couch. And Boss Rutan goes, tell him I'm going to take his wife. I remember it because all these guys, Mark Coleman, all these guys were you know, their hard work was getting pirated.
Yeah.
And that was like a big deal, you know. And then, we created the Avid DVD, which was an unrippable DVD. This little kid took a marker. This is from like 3M. They made a DVD that was unrippable. So this kid took a marker and he just painted around the outside of the DVD with a black marker, and then he started copying everyone's DVDs. And I was like, you guys got a $3 million project that was debunked by a 49 cents marker, black marker.
Oh man, you know, and it's unique because like that almost correlates to like what's happened with martial arts too, because you had all of these techniques and these huge styles and arts that were so robust. And then the 80s, 90s came in, and a lot of guys like yourself came in with a simple mindset of like what's fast, what's effective, what works. And you guys were able to like filter through so much information as far as getting to where you could defend yourself, compete, fight on a very realistic platform, you know, in a shorter amount of time, that it didn't require 20 years of katas and 20 years of doing these different martial arts styles. So, I mean, you guys basically brought the Sharpie to the martial arts DVD and were like, let's do this a little bit faster, more efficient. So what were some of the things that you noticed as you started piecing together this mixed martial arts?
Well, I was training at the Unisano Academy. So I ended up at the Unisano Academy in 1990. I ended up, 1988, I did a seminar. 1989, I moved from Palm Desert to Los Angeles, Manhattan Beach. And then I was training at the Unisano Academy. And at the time, we were doing Thai boxing, Silat, Junfon, Kali. And then I remember Sensei Yori Nakamura started a class there. And like from 88, I think 89 to 90, he started a class. So all the top guys in the school that really wanted to learn it jumped in that class. And it was actually mixed martial arts, but it was an actual technical class where you had to do footwork, stretching. You had to do a ton of drills on the Thai pads. We had to do partner drills where you're slipping a punch and body locking and tripping to submission, catching a kick to a throw. So we had all these kick catches, how to shoot on a guy that's kicking your legs. And it was all systematic. And it was like, that didn't exist in MMA. Most MMA fighters would just go fight. It was style spots.
Correct. It was style versus style. Yep.
That's right. But Shooto became popular at the Unisano Academy. We had amateur fights in 1990, 1991. And it was the new sport. And I remember at the first amateur Shooto match, we had everybody in the audience. I remember everyone in the audience. And I was getting ready to go to Japan to fight professionally. So I was only allowed to help out at the event to referee and to create the judges and all that, and corner guys. But these were the best amateur fights. I'm telling, we had so many high-level martial artists at the Unisano Academy. In 1990, for amateur Shooto, and it was already like huge, and everyone was like, this is the sport of the future. and they had the bubble helmets.
Yeah.
The amateur, and it was punching, kicking, and it was tights with shin guards and MMA gloves. And these guys, it was punching, kicking, suplexing, takedown, double legs, arm bars. You could only hold a choke for 5 seconds, and then you had to let go because the helmet,
Right.
because you can't get out.
Yeah.
But guys were getting leg locked, and I remember because Hickson was there, he was invited. Lucia Riker, Pendecker Paul Dutoit, for Sealot, Ajahn Chai, Sirasut, the founder of WTBA. Just all these different titans were in the room watching, and everyone's like, this is so exciting. This is definitely the sport of the future. And
absolutely. I mean, you were in the Mecca.
Well, unfortunately, so I got to go to Japan to fight, but if I would have continued and Sensei Yuri would have continued with this at the Inosanto Academy, it would have become huge. So he let me continue with it. So I had future fights at the Inosanto Academy. And what happened is one of the kids hit a double leg on a kid, and he leg hooked him. And the kid he was taking down, his leg snapped in half. So we had to call the ambulance. And Mrs. Inosanto at the time just says, that's it. I don't want any more fighting here. It's a huge liability, and we have a huge lawsuit pending on this stuff. She goes, I can't afford it. She goes, we'll lose the gym for this.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, we have a ring and everything. She goes, well, we can do kickboxing and spar, but we canceled the fights, and then everything just went like this. And then the UFC came out, and then everyone went, well, what is similar? But it wasn't similar. Everyone started doing jiu-jitsu, but it wasn't very popular yet.
Right.
But I was fortunate because I got in at the ground floor when nobody was doing it. Yeah. Chris Howder, Chris Saunders, Chris Posnick, all these guys, we were all garage students. I mean, I trained at the garage with private lessons with some of the best guys in the world. Yeah. And I got these guys for $40 a half hour. So I got Horian for $40 a half hour. I got Hoist for 40. I got Hickson for 40. Higgin for 40. And Luis or Limon, he was, part of the whole thing, $40 a half hour. That was the going price at the time. And I remember the time so I kept asking Hickson if he wanted to fight in Japan. In 1990, he goes, how much? And I go, it's 15 and 15. He goes, not enough. Next year, Hickson, they want to reoffer. Are you interested to fight? He goes, how much? And I go, 30 and 30. He goes, not enough. So I remember it was the third year, the third try. I said, I think it was 1993 or 2 or 3. And I said, they want to talk to you again about fighting if you're interested. And he goes, how much? And I go, they told me they'd offer 50 and 50. He goes, let's negotiate. So I ended up going and having lunch with my teacher, Sensei Yuri Nakamura, and his wife, Hiromi, with Hickson and Kim at the time. And we went to Cheesecake Factory in the marina. And we all talked about Hickson fighting in Japan. And when he fought and won the tournament, I believe that was 93 or something.
Yeah.
Everything changed because now he's going to fight again. And he's going to double his price. So he went from 50 and 50 to 100 and 100, and then $1 million and $1 million, and then $2 million and $2 million. So he just climbed the ladder. And at the higher levels of finance, Shooto could no longer support Hickson because they didn't have the money, and so other organizations had to step in, like Pride, and so he ended up fighting in Pride because they had the money he was asking for. And unfortunately, Pride only had 2 major guys that they would offer him, and one was Takada and the other was Funaki, which are Takada was a great pro wrestler, very famous, so he fought him 2 times. And then he fought Funaki because Funaki was the founder of Pancrase. and he was like the next best guy that they had to offer.
Yeah, that's crazy. All this, and so what's funny here is like, is a kid from the Midwest goes to California to learn martial arts, work on a model career, go to school, just see what the future ends up. You end up in this martial arts circle. Now you're fighting in Japan and you're helping broker one of like the biggest fight transitions in mixed martial arts history. Because whenever Rickson got popular and, on televised, like, I mean, I feel that was as influential as the UFC. But like me and you had kind of mentioned before, is I feel like there was 2 stages of mixed martial arts. There was the first one that was that style versus style, like the pioneers that were like, I'll fight anybody, see what happens, that Gracie challenge mentality. And I feel like stage 2 was that transition into sport fighting where you see these guys, I'm going to learn other martial arts. And I feel like that transition to sport fighting, which you were definitely, an advocate for and a pioneer of that movement, I feel like that whenever Rickson's star power got involved in that same movement, that, that really put the spotlight to where anybody doing martial arts was like, man, these are the guys I need to watch. This is what I need to emulate, is this mixed martial arts where you learn new skills.
Yeah. Well, so I remember the $40 a half hour privates changed when Rickson fought and won. He came back and suddenly he was $250 an hour, and he had a waiting list over a year long. So
oh my
everything
gosh.
changed. So then the price immediately, because people saw the value of jiu-jitsu finally actually portrayed in Pride or Shooto, they watched him go through 3 guys, and then he did it again. He went through, I think, 3 guys again, and for him to like go through all these people, they're like, oh my God, this guy's the best in the world. And then when Hoist, I remember they originally for the UFC they wanted Rickson, but Hoist had not been established yet. He was my age and hadn't been established, so they said, who should we choose? And they said, let's choose Hoist. Let's because he could sell the sport a lot easier, because Rickson was a lot more muscular. Looked the part. Hoist did not look like a mean, rough and tough fighter. And he went out there and he fought all these big guys and choked them all on armbar or whatever he did to beat them. And I was at the first UFC watching that. And I was also on the mat training when Hoist came with Hoyler to Rickson's to go over their strategy for their fights. And I got to watch Grandmaster Helio talk to Rickson in Portuguese about what the best guard was for MMA, for Vale Tudo. It was called Vale Tudo.
Yeah.
And Rickson was saying both feet on the hips, knees in the biceps, controlling the wrists or controlling the elbows. And Grandmaster Helio said, it's better to put one knee in the middle, both feet on the hips, one knee in the middle, and put one arm in the middle. And Rickson and his dad said, Rickson's like, I disagree. I think this is better. And his dad goes, I'll show you why. This is my take in Portuguese because I didn't understand it. And his dad said, no. And he went back down and he goes, this is why. And he had both feet on the hips. He had one arm in the middle, single arm control. And he took his outside foot and he slapped Rickson in the face with his foot like this, and then simulated a kick. And then he put his foot back. And that Rickson goes, I understand. You're like, I understand now, Papa, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there like, in complete shock, like, holy mackerel, I just witnessed history.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And then I got to watch, Rickson did the same thing to Hoist and Hoyler that he did with me when I got my first private. He goes, okay, Hoist, we're going to train. He goes, you ready? He goes, yeah. And he put Hoist on his back and he let him put a choke on him. And I go, boy, this is going to be different. Hoist, he knows the ins and outs of the chokes. Right. I can't wait to watch this. And Rickson did the same thing. He fight top hand, boom, and he got out. And I was like, holy crap. He's giving these guys his back and letting them put their hooks in and sink a deep choke. And he's getting out of Hoyler and Hoist's back takes. It was amazing. Wow. And I got to sit and watch. And then what was even more amazing was 94. Rickson was getting ready to fight in Japan. And we invited two guys. This guy, Stefanos, God rest his soul, he just passed away. He's 60 years old. He was a Titan. He was a Greco-Roman wrestler, and he was Greek. And Stefanos was in the movie Best of the Best. He was
okay.
a big Greek guy. He was also in the movie The Quest.
Oh, man. Two of my childhood favorites.
So anyways, I used to train with Stefanos. I was friends with him. I'd see him at Gold's Gym. We'd lift weights and have conversations. And he was a bouncer and an actor. And he was a Greco-Roman wrestler. And he got to become friends with Rob Kamen. And Rob Kamen is the Dutch Muay Thai, 108 fights, pro fights, 8-time world Muay Thai champion. And those guys were my sparring partners, and they helped me out get ready for fights. And he Stefanos brought in one of his friends who was a kickboxer that we used to always spar with. His name was Maurice Travis. So Maurice Travis was a really good kickboxer. And then you had Stefanos, and Rickson used these two guys. He used these two guys to go back and forth to train. And I got to sit and witness him rolling with this big, super muscular, strong, mean Greek Greco-Roman wrestler who was learning jiu-jitsu, and then go toe-to-toe with Maurice Travis. And he got Maurice Travis against the wall, and I watched Rickson run up Maurice Travis and hit a standing armbar for real in real time in a sparring match. And I sat there like, holy shit, it's real.
Oh, man,
because I watched
magic.
that. I watch these guys do that all the time in demos because the guy puts their arm out, they run up them in armbar, and right? Yeah. Where they're standing on the hip and the leg is over the face.
Yeah.
But I watched Rickson do it for real. I was like going, are you serious? And the guy, he armbarred, and as he was armbarring Travis, his arm was in the air, and Travis fell to his knees, and as he fell to his knees, Rickson just walked off. He just stepped off of him and walked away, and I was like, you just hit a running armbar on a kickboxer in real-time sparring. And I was like...
he basically did the mic drop before it was even a thing, had it done and then just walked off.
I know, he's truly a master. And then I had never seen... So I got Horian and Hoist for self-defense, but I had never seen Rickson do any of the self-defense stuff. And he did all this stuff because I hooked him up with a commercial with my friend. And he he did a commercial for a security company. And they're talking about, hooking an alarm up to your house. And they said, you do not need this alarm system if you have Rickson Gracie in your house. And my friend Chad, who he was John Wick's director, he snuck in the house, he pulled a knife, and then Rickson took him down, took the knife away, threw him, and armbarred him. It was for a security company. It was a commercial.
Oh, that's cool, man. So much history, to be a part of that.
Look up Rickson Gracie and security company, armbar security company, and that was the commercial that came about from that. but it was that time when he was auditioning, I got to sit in on the audition, and he actually demonstrated self-defense.
Yeah.
With a knife and gun. I never saw Rickson do self-defense stuff, and I was like amazed because it was all the stuff that I had never seen. It was all gun defense and knife defense because I had learned the overhead stick, and then when the guy reaches for the gun, they go for the kimura. But I had never seen all the other stuff that he did. He did all this other stuff with the gun, and I was like, holy crap. And that's when I realized at that time, I said, someone asked me about Rickson, and I said, Rickson Gracie was sent to Earth to teach humans jiu-jitsu.
Right.
He literally was sent to Earth to teach everyone about all aspects of jiu-jitsu. Not just the physical, but the spiritual aspect, the mindset, the mind, body, spirit, that's him. And that's a true master right there.
Well,
And the same with Higgin. Higgin was a high-level competitor, Higgin Machado.
Yeah.
And he teaches everyone about the sport of jiu-jitsu at that time period. And Hickson was teaching everyone about the self-defense aspect. And then to prove what jiu-jitsu really was, he went out to fight to show the world what jiu-jitsu really was. What were you going to say?
I was going to say is like, when you're around those guys that are they're high-level achievers at that time, and they're balancing, their technique and their strategy and the mental discipline. So when you were a competitive fighter and you become Shooto champion,
yeah,
was there a transition in there where you started feeling like physically, mentally, spiritually, like, did you feel it come together within your competitive career, or was that something that happened outside of that competition career?
Towards the, well, I had spent so much time at home on quarantine lockdown when I was in camp for the championship belt, because I had fought the guy, Kawaguchi. I'd fought him once and I armbarred him, but it was a match. It was a non-title match. So it took me 2 years to re-challenge and get a chance to fight for the belt, which I knew at that time, if I was to win the belt of Shooto, it would change my whole life, because here you have an American going to Japan to fight in their sport and beat the champion of their sport who had not been defeated for 6 years, and to come home and take their belt and hold their belt for 6 years afterwards. So I knew that it would change my life if I could do it. So I stayed home, I prayed, I meditated. I would go to the gym and I would just stay at home. My friends would call, "Hey, you want to go out?" I go, "No, I'm not going out." And they're like, "Why?" I go, "I got something big coming up and I can't go out." And I just remember just living in the gym, and my gloves and my shoes, my wrestling shoes, were wet every single day. They never dried for a month because I wore them so many times. And it was to the point where I was on the ground so much, I started naming all the little cuts and cracks in the mat. I had names for all of them.
Just that hyper focus, like immersion training, for that, whenever you prep for that. So when you did achieve that, did it change your life as you had expected, that you were like, this changed everything?
It gave me more credibility to talk and say things. And because a lot of people never saw my fighting or my fight career in Japan, they only saw a couple of fights I fought over here. And so I had a lot of fights in Japan that a lot of people never saw.
I mean, you had almost 30 professional fights, right?
The thing is a lot of the guys that I fought, a lot of the fights I fought were never televised. You'd have to fight them on a video somewhere. So I had all these fights and all these things all over, and it wasn't until I had a couple fights. The only reason, because I wasn't fighting enough in Japan, is why I took a couple of these other fights. And I was offered a fight in Japan, after I retired in 2000. I was offered a fight in Pride. A year later, my friend Jim Liu said, "Hey, I heard you retired. You want to fight in Pride?" And I go, "Who do you have me fight?" And he goes, "I don't know. Let me call." So he called, and next thing they go, "Yeah, we're definitely interested. He could fight Dan Henderson or Shoji." So either Shoji or Henderson. And then at the time, I got a phone call from Shooto, and they said, "You're retired. You can't fight in Pride." And I was like, well, I'm retired from Shooto, and yeah, I can. And he goes, "No, you're retired. If you're retired, you're retired." So they stopped me from fighting in Pride. That was around 2000 after I retired. And so I got a call to fight in the UFC, same thing. But I was in England and Europe for a month doing a tour. And I got back and they go, "Hey, you want to fight in UFC?" I go, "Yeah." And I go, "When?" They go, "Next week." And I go, I'm out of shape. I haven't trained. for a
Yeah.
month. When you're
Yeah.
doing a tour, you're not training.
Yeah, you're on the road, hotel, time changes, schedules. Well, so you made this transition, where you became the champion and you had this career. So when did that transition into being a coach and a mentor? Like, do you recall a time in which you felt that, like, you know what, this is what I can do to help people?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I was always helping people.
Right.
While I was fighting, I was still helping a crew of people that were working with me. So I was helping other guys get fights and train for fights. But half the guys that I was training with all went into Hollywood. They all went into stunt work. And they all got into movie stuff. And all these guys that I thought, hey, they're like, there's not enough money in fighting. You get fame, but you don't have fortune. So we're going to go where there's more security. So all my guys that I used to train with, they're all in movie stuff now. And I was a part of that whole thing. But at the time, my friend, Chad, who was my coach, he gave me the ultimatum. He said, listen, you need to make a choice. It's either movies or fighting, but you can't do both. And I go, why can't I do both? He goes, because you can't. In order to be successful at one, you have to put forth all your effort. And I said, well, why? Okay, so if I'm getting this many calls for fighting, why don't I continue my fight career until I'm done, and then I'll transition over to movie stuff, to back to stunt stuff. Because I could do gymnastics, I could do high falls, I could do horse, I could drive. I was perfect for stunts because I was ballsy. I wasn't afraid to do anything, and I could do, even if you can't do it, you still tell everyone you can.
Right. Fake it till you make it. But
Hey,
I mean, you're an athlete. I mean, you've been an athlete most of your life. You're in shape. Yeah. That makes total sense.
They said, can you drive a semi? I go, who can't? I couldn't drive a semi. You kidding me? Hey, can you snowboard? And I was like, pfft. It's like surfing. Until I watched my friend Brad Martin take a shitter and hit his lip, and he went 200 miles an hour headbutt into the snow. And I remember he sat up and he goes, I gotta go to the chalet, to the ski patrol. And I go, why? He goes, look at my glasses. And they were embedded in his nose. They were stuck. They were like in, and the skin was over it, and there was like a drop of blood on both sides. And I go, it looks like your glasses are part of your head.
Yeah. Implanted. He got implanted.
They're Oakleys, and they stuck in his head. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Oh, man.
I had so much history with so many of these guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you lived life with them, and just being a part of their journey or things. So now that you look back, I mean, because you got a lifetime of just experience and all these times, what was your favorite MMA fight? Your favorite fight that was like, man, I love that fight. Win or lose, doesn't matter. Which one?
Probably the fight I challenged the belt and I won the belt the first time. Second time wasn't so much fun when I fought to defend the belt, because I fought the kid was 10 years younger, and he was tan, and he had his eyebrows all plucked, and he had white teeth, and he was telling everyone he's going to kick my butt. And I go, you're 10 years younger than me. And that one wasn't quite as much fun as the build up to my first challenge match for the belt, because of the fact that I had fought the guy before. Yeah. And it was definitely America versus Japan. And I came out with my American robe and the flag, and they had the national anthems. And I mean, that was a huge ordeal. Yeah. And you could tell, and he was like, it's not fair. He goes, I have a wife and kids, and I have a 9-to-5 job, and I can't train like Erik. He's a full-time martial artist. And I go, I have 3 jobs. I have 2 bartending jobs. I teach private lessons. I go, I work more than you do. And I go, and at that time, I didn't have a wife and a kid. You're right. But I also had 3 jobs because, I'm working 3 jobs, and I could barely even pay attention.
Well, I mean, in those days, I don't think there was any fighters in those days that were, a full-time fighter making a living doing that, where like all they had to do is train that were had
There
a
were not.
career.
There were not, because there wasn't enough money. Even at the time of Hickson fighting, he was doing private lessons and
Yeah.
group classes and trying to get movie parts, stunt parts, commercials. And then the fight was an opportunity for him to become huge and on a huge stage for the entire world to see. And that's
Yeah.
what really changed everything. And with Hoist fighting in 1993 in Colorado at that time, and him winning, that's how Gracie Jiu-Jitsu exploded.
Man, it definitely changed everything, and for you to be a part of that history and to have such a strong role, and you're carrying it on today. Your organization is all over the world. You got guys that are competing at the highest levels, and you've built this support system by passing on what you've learned, and you've created a system that works. And I really feel like that's.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I promoted MMA all throughout Europe, all over Australia and Canada, all over Europe during I'm going to say 1990. I was going to schools that did, and I was teaching and promoting mixed martial arts. I said, this is the sport of the future. Everyone's going to be doing it. Here's a system that I'm going to show you. And I said, you guys, if you strike, you need to learn to grapple. If you guys are grapplers, you need to learn how to strike. And the transition that merges the two is the clinch and the ability to take people down. So the clinch is the groundbreaker, because a lot of people, it was either Thai boxing or jiu-jitsu. There was no middle area where the clinch, where guys were really good at the clinch stuff. So
Yeah.
that was in the early 90s, 1990 on. And I remember going to a guy's gym and they're like, hey, can we do MMA and grapple? And I go, sure. I go, where's your mats? And they go, we don't have mats. We'll just do it on the carpet.
Yeah.
And I broke both of my elbows in Italy, training the police how to throw people with a head and arm throw. And I landed on my right elbow on Saturday. And on Sunday, I landed on my left elbow. I chipped both my arms.
Just, it's so different how things have changed, and we've just gotten more educated. And I feel like, you're one of the leaders that kind of orchestrated this transition between ranges. Like, I feel like when you look at high-level MMA and high-level performers right now in combat sports, the guys that can change combat ranges, or change the distance, like that transition seems to lead to so much success. And, when I'm looking back at what you were doing in the 90s and how you're competing and what your structure has been for the last 20 years, you really have, been on kind of a leading edge of that, of helping people. You don't need the grappler to become the best striker in the world, but he needs to be a good striker so he can transition between those ranges.
That's right.
And you seem to have created a system that works. Like, used to work, I think, like Bob Lou Sabral trained with you, Sean Shirk trained with you, like a lot of names back in the day of guys that were supposedly one-dimensional, that you had given and assisted in these multiple skill sets to where you would be surprised, like, man, this guy's striking actually is really good. His boxing's good. Look at that clinch work whenever you're expecting something different, like, oh, just a jiu-jitsu guy or just a wrestler. So, you've really given a lot to the industry. I appreciate you taking time today. I really do value it. Is there anything you'd like to finish with?
Yeah, when you're fighting in MMA and you say, oh, the guy I'm fighting is just a kickboxer, or the guy I'm fighting is just a wrestler, it's MMA. Nobody's just anything. And every time that people get in there and they think that they're fighting somebody that's just something, then later on they find out, they're like, hey, where did this wrestler learn how to box so well? Or where did this boxer learn how to pull guard and hit triangles and omoplatas? So when you're fighting in MMA, nobody's just anything. It's MMA, so it's all mixed. I think MMA is probably one of the best forms of self-defense also, because you can fight at all ranges if you have to. I love grappling. I love jiu-jitsu. I love catch wrestling. I love Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I love judo and sambo and wrestling. If it's grappling, learn it. If you're a grappler, doesn't matter where it comes from, learn it. Everyone's your teacher. Everybody. Learn from everybody. Everybody has something to offer. everybody.
I love that. You know, a humble attitude. You've always been a continuous student. You pour into anybody you can. It's definitely appreciated. Thanks for the time. And, you know, I definitely, you know, I'll be in touch soon. And hopefully when things get back to normal, we'll be able to make a trip out and come see you.
Caleb, thank you for your time, and thank you to everybody for checking us out and listening to some of the craziness.
Absolutely.
All right. Bless you guys during this quarantine stuff. Hope you guys fight through it and stay positive.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.